My name is Karen Pinch. I'm the town administrator here. Welcome to our 2024 Meet the Candidates event. Those of you who are here and those who are watching at home probably recognize that your local candidates are probably just as important, if not more so, than the national candidates as they affect your daily lives. So we feel it's really important to carry on this tradition of having these Meet the Candidates forums here in town. Since the town is a neutral party in elections, we've invited the League of Women Voters, who's also a neutral party, to moderate this event for us. And so I want to introduce Christine Martone, who is the president of the League of Women Voters South County. Christine will be our moderator tonight. And I'd also like to introduce Nina Rosmondo. She's the chair of Voter Services, and she'll be the assistant moderator tonight. And then I will let Christine and Nina introduce the rest of their staff that they want to introduce. So since we have a lot of ground to cover tonight, I'm gonna turn it right over to them right away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. As the chair of Voter Services, I really want to welcome everybody who's here. I don't know if there's anybody upstairs in the overflow room or not, as well as the people who are watching at home. There are two candidate forums tonight. We're starting with the school committee. And the second one obviously will be the town council. There are 4 candidates running for Richmond's 2 seats on the Charahoe School Committee, and all 4 candidates are participating in tonight's forum. This forum will be live streamed and recorded by the town of Richmond. And I've been told that a link will be published on the Richmond town website after the event, should interested parties not able to attend tonight or watch the forum live can watch. Questions were submitted by Richmond residents, so thank you every resident who submitted questions, and vetted this evening by Chris and myself. If more than one question, and there definitely was more than one question on some issues, the league has selected the question to ask. In vetting the questions, the league reserves the right to change the wording to be as neutral and clear as possible. The league does not and will not ask questions that were directed to any single candidate. A large number of questions were received, so not all questions will be asked, and there are no names that will be announced this evening. So now I'd like to describe the format of the school committee candidate forum.
Ms. Rosmondo, are we going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance?
If you would like us to, is that customary? Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Then let's stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for mentioning that.
You're welcome.
Okay, this is the format for this forum. Each candidate will have an opening and a closing statement of 1 minute. Each candidate will be asked each question and will have 1 minute to answer. A candidate may choose to pass on answering any question. The first question will be addressed to Mr. Johnson, candidate number 1 on the left, and then to candidate 2, all until everyone has answered the question. The second question will be addressed first to candidate 2, Ms. Reynolds, then to candidate 3, and so on. Each candidate will get an opportunity to answer at least 1 question first. In addition, each candidate will be given 2 wild cards. They have 2 colored cards up there, which may be used only once to add 30 seconds to their response to a question or to comment on the other candidate's response. When you raise a card, the moderator will call on you. The league urges you to use these cards to differentiate your position from other candidates. There are 2 timers over here on my left who will give a 30-second and 15-second warning, followed by a stop card. Candidates may complete their sentence, but will be interrupted by the moderator if they continue. The moderator may also interrupt a candidate to ask them to clarify or elaborate on a response. If there is time, we may ask some yes or no questions, as there were some yes or no questions submitted. And now I want to read a slightly edited version of someone's question to us. Most Americans have had the experience of going on a job interview to seek employment. In many ways, this forum represents a job interview with your constituents. This resident thinks it is important for the community to have the opportunity to ask questions and hear directly from you. And we are pleased that so many candidates have joined us tonight. So at this point, I'm turning it over to our president, Christine Martone.
All righty, I just have one little statement to say. Be sure that you're close enough to your mic so that everybody in the room can hear you. And if anybody out there doesn't hear me, let me know. And please say your name before answering the first question. So first of all, for opening statements, we will start with Mr. Johnson, and then go along the line.
Great. Good evening. My name is Clay Johnson, and I'm running for the Charahoe School Committee with Louise Dinsmore because I believe we can achieve more. By comparing ourselves to the best, not just our state peers, we can excel academically. We can make Richmond affordable by working within our existing $70 million school budget. And we can strengthen our district's curriculum by putting all of our lesson plans online. To tell you a little bit about myself, I am 55 years old. I have been married to Gina Johnson for 29 years. I'm a proud father of two, one a Charahoe grad and one a homeschool graduate. As a 26-year resident of Richmond, I bring a wealth of experience, including a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, a master's degree in business administration, and I have served on the Charahoe School Committee. I've chaired the Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce and held various other leadership roles. With our experience and vision, Louise Dinsmore and I can make Charahoe the best that it can be. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Aaron and Karen and League of Women Voters for hosting this evening. And thank you for all in attendance and those at home who are taking time out of your busy schedules to watch this. My name is Karen Reynolds. I was appointed to the school committee in the fall of 2021 by the Richmond Town Council. That was actually the first time I met Jess Purcell, as she was the only other applicant for this vacancy. My husband and I have been married for 39 years, 25 years, 25 years. We moved to Richmond 23 years ago after much research about the town, the community, and the school district. Richmond is where we chose to raise our family. We have 3 sons, 2 Charahoe graduates, and 1 current middle school student. I am a public school teacher in a neighboring district. I am a strong advocate for public schools. Our public schools provide a great service to our families, our communities, and our children. They educate all of our children, preparing them for the future, their future lives. We are fortunate to have a dynamic district in our community. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Louise Dinsmore. I'm running for school committee because I feel strongly that our district should set the standard for academic excellence in Rhode Island, and we can achieve that goal while simultaneously being fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. Having attended school committee meetings for several years, I'm well-versed, informed, and knowledgeable about the budget process and current events. I'm a critical thinker. I'm independent-minded, objective, and will make decisions that I feel are in the best interest of students, educators, staff, parents, taxpayers, and the community. Professionally, I founded and run a fundraising consulting business where I help nonprofits make their dreams come true. A local example of my work includes raising $3 million for Wood River Health to construct a new building to expand access and improve the quality of life in our community. Also, I co-founded the Gabrielle Dinsmore Heart and Hope Fund, a nonprofit in memory of my daughter, Gabrielle, to support Rhode Island and New England children and families impacted by congenital heart defects. We raised over $1.7 million in the 7 years that we were in operation. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity this evening.
Hi, I'm Jessica Purcell. I'm a graphic designer and a small business owner, parent of 2 students in the district. The Charahoe Regional School District has a very important mission to educate the children of our 3 towns. Investing in the next generation is the ultimate patriotic duty we undertake as a proud American community. I'm an active school volunteer, eager to share my love of food, gardens, fitness, and reading. I love getting to know our amazing students and staff. The school committee gave me an opportunity to be a volunteer with a voice as I participated in discussions about policy, curriculum, and the budget process. I first stepped up to run in 2022, but lost by 28 votes. A vacancy opened 2 months later, and I was slated for appointment due to a specific procedure in the Richmond Charter that gives precedence to those who ran in previous elections. However, there was some partisan organizing involving Ms. Dinsmore and Mr. Johnson that kept me out of my rightful seat for 6 months. I fought back and won a petition to the Rhode Island Supreme Court and was appointed last July. I'm running again to keep my seat so I can continue my work to support our district and put students first in all decisions, while acting as a bridge between our schools and the community. We need a school committee that works together for our kids and not against each other. We need a school committee that collaborates with stakeholders and school leaders to keep Charahoe moving forward. We need moms like me and Karen Reynolds.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I will start with the first question. Mr. Johnson? Being elected to being elected to the school committee is more than just occupying a seat. It's critical that the school committee members have the competency required to lead the community. In your opinion, what would you identify as 3 critical competencies that any town council person, school committee person should possess to effectively represent the community?
Got it. So, I've served on the school committee before, but before I served on the school committee, there was a case where there were 2 Charahoe teachers that actually had intercourse with an underage student. I, in my first act as a citizen submitting a records request, requested the signatures for all the teachers that had taken sexual harassment training in the school, and it wasn't available. And I made a call to my local school committee member, and they put it on the agenda, and they changed that. On the school committee, I put in the policy that says there's no fraternization between teachers and students, well before it was a law statewide. I got involved with the no politics in the classroom policy. I think a key core competency is actually getting things done. And I've done that on the school committee before, and I've done that in my business. I run a local business that I've run for 18 years very successfully. And I think I can bring that experience to the school committee again.
Core competency is attending all meetings and being available. I attended all meetings. I haven't missed a single meeting in the 3 years that I've been appointed. I take on the tough topics. I'm not afraid of them. I'm a willing participant. I'm a willing listener. I listen to all sides to be a critical thinker, critical decision maker. And when it comes to the budget, I make decisions based on what's in the best interest of students.
So 3 critical competencies that I would describe in bringing talent and to the school committee would be, first, you have to be objective. Okay. Last 10 seconds?
Yes.
So I think what I said in the last 10 seconds was that I'm a results-oriented person. I have my own business. If I don't deliver for my clients, I don't get hired. I want to bring that work ethic to the school committee. Thank you.
Jessica Purcell, three critical competencies would start with a broad understanding of the district's strategic vision and mission. This is something that's developed by the community in our schools as far as our administrators, our teachers, our parents, students work together on that. You know, each school has their own mission, not school improvement plan formed by the school improvement teams, which I was a member of before I was on the school committee. I have on the ground understanding of our schools because I'm a parent and a volunteer in our schools. And while understanding the broad nature of our schools and how they relate to our community and our state as well, we also need to have an understanding of individual needs of each student. We have to meet students where they are and understand that each school is different, has different needs. And then we also need to provide information to residents. As a school committee member, my job is to communicate from our schools to our community and engage and empower residents with accurate information.
I have a question. Are we allowed to look at our notes? Because you said in the beginning that we are not allowed to look at our notes. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're,
I took notes.
Yes.
She said we could take notes.
You can take
You can
notes.
take notes.
okay.
So I took
Yes.
notes and I read
Okay,
from the notes.
just want to make sure we're all
Yeah.
singing
Yeah.
from the same song sheet here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
okay.
Wait,
Let her
wait.
just clarify. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Do you support the $15 million bond question that is on the ballot for projects on the Charahoe main campus? Why or why not?
I do support the bond question. I think it's important that we move forward with trying to improve our schools and making sure that we're maintaining them and improving them. I know that a lot came out during the original bond question, but at the same time, we were able to create a plan for the main campus that would improve security, improve the building structures themselves, making them safer and better learning environments as we move forward. I do support it.
I do support the $15 million bond referenda that is going to be coming forward to the voters in November for the Switch Road campus improvements. For the record, all about transparency. Clay Johnson and I did oppose the $150 million mega bond that was put before the voters on May 7th. There was a lot of research that went into that, which is one of the reasons why I oppose that bond. There were lots of information going around the district. I did my due diligence. I spoke with other school committee members in other cities and towns, and they told me, Louise, run away from this. Don't walk away, run away. It was going to be a trifecta of tax increases for the local taxpayers of Richmond and Hopkinton with 30 years of bond payments that we couldn't afford, years of school budget increases almost every year, and years of town budget increases almost every year. How much can the taxpayers bear? I did not feel it was a good deal for Richmond taxpayers, and that's why I opposed it.
I do support the $15 million bond for improvements at the main campus. The plan for these improvements and repairs we've paid for as part of the stage 2 process. That was part of the $150 million proposal for new schools at 76 to 81% reimbursement. We're one of the only districts and towns in the state that has not been able to benefit from the state bond that was approved in 2018. The district is now undergoing more facility condition assessments. The state of Ride has sent a new company down to evaluate that. So I hope we can move forward with plans for the elementary schools because the safety and security of our students in our schools is utmost concern to me, especially our youngest learners in elementary school and preschool.
I do support the $15 million bond question. The original bond of $150 million was deeply flawed. I actually brought up using newer and fewer money back in 2017. The rest of the school committee wasn't interested in exploring it at all. They waited to almost exactly the last minute. They discussed this issue for 6 years in South Kingstown before they passed their bond, so everybody could get on board after they failed it a couple times. So there was a full town-wide discussion. We had 6 weeks to discuss this thing before we had to vote on $150 million. And
That's not accurate.
this bond failed. This new bond actually fails to prioritize what was the original bond was sold as, which is fixing the middle schools, which I think is another real problem with this $15 million bond. But ultimately, I agree with the $15 million bond, and I would fund all payments for this $15 million bond out of the existing $70 million school budget.
Ms. Din,
Oh, can I just have a pull wild card? The $70 million school budget that you refer to, you're not providing enough context for folks to understand that some of that money is federal grant money. Some of it is revenue. It's actually money that comes into the district. It's not all coming out of taxpayer pockets. So I don't appreciate you calling it a $70 million bond when our local portion of the bond is less than $50 million and it's split among 3 towns. I think it's a very misleading number that you put out there in addition to other misleading numbers that you've put out. So I'd just like to call attention to that. Thank you.
I would like to point out that the $70 million is a factual number, and every dollar of it comes from taxpayers, whether it's local taxpayers from our property tax, whether it's federal tax that's paid to the local school district, or whether it's income tax that goes to the state and gets sent back to the state. It's all of your money. So talking about this as misinformation is very, very misleading. There's not a profit line on the school budget where they can raise money in otherwise another format than through tax dollars.
wait, Ms. Dinsmore was next.
Thank you. I don't believe that it's misinformation to say that our school budget in Charahoe right now, all in, is $70 million. I don't believe that it's misinformation that people in Richmond are really struggling. I've crisscrossed our town over the last 3 months. I've spoken with voters on the days of the school budget votes and the town budget votes. I have the pulse of Richmond voters. Richmond residents are hurting. We have experienced excessive economic strife over the last 3 years, and that has not gone unnoticed in Richmond. People are hurting. What I heard over and over again on the campaign trail, and what I continue to hear on the campaign trail, is thank you, Louise and Clay, for organizing to defeat the $150 million mega bond that taxpayers could not afford and would not be able to sustain financially over a 30-year period. We had the town council president in Richmond, the town council president in Hopkinton also support that. We had leaders all over our 2 towns that wanted that defeated.
Thanks. First, I'd like to point out that Louise was referencing her notes after it was agreed upon that we would not be referencing our notes. Secondly, we have an amazing development director at Charahoe who has brought in a lot of grant money. That is not taxpayer money. It's in various places. It's utilized to support programming and to provide additional educational opportunities for our students. And as for meeting taxpayers and community members, Jess and I have been canvassing as well, and we've met a lot of people who are truly disappointed in the fact that this bond, the original bond, failed.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Dinsmore, you're next.
Yes.
Now that the measure to build new Charahoe schools has failed, how do you plan to address the aging infrastructure in our current elementary schools?
I think this has to be a thoughtful discussion among the school committee and also the residents of our district. This is not going to be easy to solve, okay? This is going to be a challenge for us moving forward. I really feel strongly that we have to have these thoughtful discussions during school committee meetings, not among an agenda item that has literally 37 items on an agenda. The June 18th school committee agenda had 36 items. One of the agenda items was the closing of Hope Valley Elementary School and capital improvement plans. How are you supposed to come up with a capital improvement plan when you're taking these discussions in piecemeal? There has to be thoughtful discussions. The budget process is single item agendas from time to time. So capital improvements have to have those types of thoughtful discussions among residents and school committee members. Also, I believe really strongly that we have to look at our asset in Charahoe Tech. And our app, may I use this for 30 seconds? So Charahoe Tech is a bright light in our district. From academic excellence is one of our pillars of our platform. what we should be doing is marketing Charahoe Tech as the best career and technical program in Rhode Island. We should be recruiting out-of-district students to come into our school. Money follows the student. If we can recruit 20 more additional career and tech students from out of district, that can realize up to $400,000 annually that we can perhaps put into capital improvements. We need these out-of-the-box thoughts and processes to move our district forward.
I would agree that Charahoe Tech is an asset of our school system. Up to 75% of Charahoe students participate in that program. It's highly successful and brings in millions of dollars of revenue every year. But to the topic at hand with the question, capital improvements at our elementary school, I have been a leader on the school committee as far as trying to bring structure to that open agenda item. At the last meeting, I requested cost benefit analysis of a slow phase out of Hope Valley versus a swift closure of Hope Valley. And one of the big concerns I've had all along with this discussion is the preschool that is at Hope Valley that has about 100 students. It's an integrated preschool. And one of the benefits of the new school bond that did not pass is that there would have been a new modern space for the preschool in one of the new buildings. And now we're left with a building that's being phased out that doesn't have a space for the preschool. So I think that has to be part of the plan, and also a place for the alternative learning education that's at Ashaway currently in the trailer. It is a challenging discussion. We need all players on board to engage in the conversation.
Going back to 2017 again, there was a report called the Jacobs Report, and the Jacobs Report identified deficiencies in all the schools, and we failed to keep up with the requirements to maintain these schools. That's the fundamental problem here. That report said that 17% student population would decrease over the next 10 to 20 years. We continue to see a decrease in the schools. It took the state a law to force the school district to start maintaining the schools, which I think is pathetic. And the report showed that Hope Valley, out of all the schools, was in the best shape. So why are we looking at cutting Hope Valley School? It makes no sense. If we have space in these schools, we can expand them to the career tech program. Richmond Elementary School has 160 seats that are open right now. All the elementary schools have seats that are open. There's ways to use this space as a revenue generator. As Louise said, every student that comes here out of district brings tuition money with them. And we can use that to offset the cost of maintaining these schools, which we desperately need to do.
We should be working together with our community, with all stakeholders. We should be looking at the new report that's being, developed, that's going to assess all of our buildings. And we should be taking in the needs of our youngest students. Hope Valley Elementary School was originally built as a middle school or a junior high school. It's not appropriate for an elementary school. It's not actually up to full safety standards. There's no man lock at Hope Valley Elementary School. In order to make that a safer building, we would have to build one of those. Also, the art room and the music room is outside of Hope Valley Elementary School. I do have concerns about Charlestown Elementary School taking on the preschool program, which was asked at the last meeting, because it's not built for the preschool, which means we would have to do some additional infrastructure at Charlestown Elementary School.
Ms. Purcell, this is a long one and a two-parter. So, in what areas of education do you think parents should be the deciding factor? And the follow-up is, what are your ideas about how to address some citizens' demand to ban books in school libraries or individual classrooms and eliminate DEI from the curriculum?
I think the areas of education that parents should be the deciding factor is in when it comes to their own children. Parents always have a right to direct what their children are exposed to or the experiences they have. That is well within their rights. How would I respond to residents who want to ban books and curb DEI? I would encourage them to talk to their school leaders, their teachers, talk to the school librarians, and have a conversation about what's going on in the schools that they find objectionable, guide them through the policy and the processes so that they can make their concerns heard and known, and if they desire, they can take action through the library media policy, which also gives an option to restrict the book to just their student or to the whole student population. I think, as I said, parents should be making decisions for their children, but not necessarily all the children of a school district.
Mr. Johnson.
I think parents should be able to get involved wherever they want to get involved in their child's education. And this goes to a policy that was put in place when I was on the school committee for those 7 months in 2023, where family and guardian was attempted to be removed from policies at the school. These kind of efforts are taking place here. In terms of banning books, I think ban is the wrong word. I think age appropriate is the right word. We don't send 15-year-olds into R-rated movies. Like, it just makes sense. You don't have pornography in the school library. And whether that pornography is a picture or a graphic novel, it shouldn't matter. It needs to be out of the schools. In terms of DEI, I know that's a buzzword. I'm going to just take it on face value on what these words mean. I believe diversity is a good value. I believe inclusion is a good value. I believe equity is a problem, because equity is trying to make sure everyone ends up at the same place, and that's un-American. We believe in equality. We want people to have equal opportunity, and I believe our school systems give kids the chance.
I believe parents should be involved in their children's education in every facet. They should be checking out the curriculum. They should be talking to their students. They should be talking to the teachers. This should be a family event. I believe in true collaboration. As for book banning, I'm not in favor of book banning. And while I believe that they should be age appropriate, I think that's also up to the family, and the family should be deciding what books their children should be reading. As for equity, it's okay to make things equitable for all kids. We meet kids where they are to move them forward in this educational process. And some kids are further along and some kids aren't. And in order to meet the needs of all students, we have to meet them where they are to move them forward.
So one of the pillars of the Dinsmore-Johnson platform is academic excellence. And we cannot achieve academic excellence without parental involvement. They are a key constituency in the success of our district. In order for our district to be the best district in Rhode Island, we have to have parental involvement. Parents should be the deciding factor, and I agree with Clay, in every asset that they want to be involved. Banning books. I'm not a book banner. I don't feel that book banning has any place. However, we have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And if taxpayers' money are funding sexually explicit pornographic material that is found in school libraries, I would feel that that's age inappropriate. DEI, again, that's a buzzword. I believe in diversity and inclusion. I believe in kindness and respect. That's my golden rule as a human being, is to treat everyone with kindness and respect. I think that that atmosphere and that culture should be permeated in the classroom.
All right, we're back to Mr. Johnson. If you support level funding of the budget, what specific line items do you prioritize in cutting? If you do not support level funding and will consider an increase, what are your priorities?
So thanks for the softball. So level funding means we're spending the same we did last year, right? That means no cuts. This is what the game that's played every year is the school committee proposes a fake budget that's much bigger, and then they trim from that budget and they make it look like there's cuts. And the Westerly Sun has screaming headlines that says the school committee cut another $200,000. That's not how it works. So in terms of priorities, which I think are the key discussion point here, the money needs to be focused on learning. The money needs to be focused on the mission of the school district. It needs to be focused on how do we get these kids to better perform at their tests. Right now, 1 in 3 8th graders is meeting expectations in math. That's unacceptable. So step 1 is, how can we fix that? We can use tools like Conmigo and get personal AI tutors for these kids. It'll cover kindergarten through college for $44 a kid. Like, that seems to me to be a smart way to spend this money. Thank you.
level funding has major drawbacks. We cut the Spanish program at the elementary school 3 years ago, and parents are still discussing that. We cut a bus this year. That impacted parents on a daily basis. It was added back. I am not about putting kids in front of computers. I'm not about online tutoring or learning. It does serve a purpose, but it's not the sole purpose. And as for broadcast testing is a single snapshot. It is not the only snapshot as to what our kids are able to do. Our kids are far more faceted than a single test.
So this is a really important topic for me because this is why I got involved in local issues to begin with. In fiscal year 2022, Clay and I organized an effort to level fund the school budget. We had a meeting with Gina Picard and Ned Draper, the CFO, and they were proposing a budget increase. When you have public money, you have to have an awesome responsibility for the taxpayers. I asked Ned and Gina, did you have a budget surplus or a budget deficit the year before? To my shock and surprise, Ned Draper told me that they had a $3.2 million surplus. And I said, and you are coming back and asking the taxpayers for more money? That is fiscally irresponsible. It's fiscally irresponsible. Level funding. Where I think what we need at this point is a mindset shift. Instead of level funding, we have to support programs that are going to be revenue generators for our district. That's an expansion of Charahoe Tech. If we expanded Charahoe Tech by 20 students per year, that can realize another $400,000 to the district. I'm tired of hearing about cuts. We have to think about what can enhance the district.
I do not support level funding. Every year, the cost of living increases and inflation has been a factor over the last several years. The local impact of the school budget over the last 5 years has been 1.19%, which is well below inflation and well below the cost of living increases that we've all seen. As far as the budget surplus goes, this is a planned part of the budget so that we don't run our schools into the ground without having money to fund emergencies as they come up. That it actually is part of a fiscally responsible management program. We have excellent administration that works with our money to invest it wisely and to make sure we can cover the contractual obligations that we have and meet the legal requirements of the public education system. I agree that tech tutors, disruptive technology is one of the main issues of our school system right now that kids are facing. I wouldn't impose more technology on kids. I think they need to be learning foundations through working hands-on.
Ms. Reynolds? The current teacher contract will expire during your term. What are your specific priorities when negotiating this to retain or attract the most qualified staff?
Unfortunately, as a teacher and a member of NEA, I'm reluctant to answer that question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
The current teacher contract will expire during your term. What are your specific priorities when negotiating this to retain or attract the most qualified staff?
So in order for us to retain and attract the most qualified staff, salaries and benefits have to be in line with our peers around the state. We have exceptional educators in our district, and of course, we want to support those educators. I think that that's really important. I think that we have to look at the term of the contract. Should it be a 3-year contract or should it be something, maybe a 2-year contract? It's interesting that you asked this question because 2 years ago, one of my opponents, Jess Purcell, was asked this question during a similar forum. And the question posed was, would you support a 3-year contract or a 1-year contract? And she said that she would support a 1-year contract. But when the time came to vote on a new contract, she supported a 3-year contract. So she, misspoke. I don't know. She went back on her pledge, but we have to make sure that our teachers are compensated fairly, within how other competitive districts are paid, paying their staff and professionals.
One of my core values is that I value teachers and staff. I have daily experiences with them, with my children. I know they're super important to our school district, and in many instances, they're members of our community. When I was asked that position about a one-year contract, it was recovering from COVID. It was an odd time. But after the contract took 9 months to negotiate. There's no way I could ever approve a one-year contract. It's not long enough. I think our teacher retention rate is pretty good. I think our salary and benefits are in line with a lot of what we see around the state. And when you read the FYI materials in our budget, you can see how many teachers love working here and come to this district and are excited to work here. The contract I'm more concerned with is the education support professionals. Our custodial vacancies have been high for many years. And I think that is where I would invest more money, is in custodial positions.
Along with my wife, I own a preschool and we have 44 teachers on staff. I can tell you how valuable they are. It's incredible. We need to retain and attract good teachers. They certainly have to be paid fairly. I also believe that they should be paid for performance, and I think we should negotiate that into the contracts. I was involved in the teacher contract when I first joined the school committee in 2017. And what I can tell you is the process is broken. It's a bunch of people playing a game until the very last minute. And what I would say is that we should have this discussion in public, and it should be on the table, and we should say, here's the dollars we're dealing with. And you as the union should come to us as management and let's sort it out. Let's have this public discussion. It might mean more pay. It might mean less teachers. There's got to be a balance in here, but ultimately the decisions have to be focused on getting the right teachers in front of the kids that need them. Thank you.
Just quickly.
Yep.
If we really want to treat teachers as professionals, we would not be asking them in any way, shape, or form to be publishing their lesson plans to the community. Curriculum is visible. It's on the website. You have access to it. Parents have meetings for curriculum. We discuss it in school committee meetings as well. But asking teachers to publish daily lesson plans, not just to parents, but to community members, is adding a lot to their plates. It's unnecessary.
Ms. Dinsmore,
Yes.
how can a school committee act to ensure that Charahoe school staff are prepared to support student mental health, an area of particular contemporary concern?
So this is an interesting question about mental health. I think that the schools have taken on a huge responsibility when it comes to the very sensitive topic of mental health. I feel really strongly that if any student is having a mental health challenge or a struggle, that those conversations have to be held in concert with parents. There has to be parental involvement. Parents have to be included, because parents don't, parent their kids with the school department. So any conversation around mental health should have parental inclusion and involvement.
Can you just repeat the question?
Absolutely. How can the school committee act to ensure that Charahoe school staff are prepared to support student mental health, an area of particular contemporary concern?
Personally, as a school committee member, I would support professional development for staff along mental health. The Charahoe staff has done a lot of work in that area, and they'll continue to do so. There is also peer-to-peer support for mental health in our schools that I would support. I think that's an especially salient way that children can connect to each other and help through any issues they may be having. And I think, there's a range of severities, like a range of mental health issues that kids could be having, anywhere from, light anxiety to feeling targeted by other students. I think that phones are, I'll use the phrase again, a disruptive technology that have had a very negative impact on the youth of today, especially our adolescent children, as they're in school with their phones, and that can cause bullying and targeting. And I think that we have to work with the schools and the teachers to address that.
I think that a lot of the anxiety and mental health issues can be resolved through building confidence. And absolutely, the parents need to be involved in their children's mental health. The parents should be informed if there's any concerns at the school. We also need to be very aware from a school committee perspective about bullying. We need to address this at a very early level. And I asked for that to be one of the superintendent's goals in 2017, and the school committee rejected it. I think that should be a discussion at every meeting. I think academic performance should be discussed at every meeting so that we're seeing that these kids are improving. I agree, phones are a problem. Phones are a real source of anxiety here. I know there's an effort to put these phones in yonder bags. It's very expensive. We need to understand what's driving this phone problem, and we need to have the teachers intercede when these kids are not following the rules. They're not supposed to have their phones out in class, and we need to have the teachers challenge that. All we're doing is moving that problem back to a yonder bag. And I think if these kids are off their phone and paying attention to the adults, things will get better.
As a school committee member and somebody who's truly concerned about childhood mental health issues, I absolutely believe that we should be involving families as much as possible, but sometimes it's just not possible, and we still need to help our students. I believe that the phones are an issue, and I believe the yonder pouches, it's not just in the classroom, it's also in the bathrooms and in the hallways. So the yonder pouches provide that lock away for the day where it's not an issue for the students. I've talked to administrators both here in Charahoe and in other districts, and administrators are spending large portions of their day dealing with student cell phone issues, whether it's social media, whether it's different bullying. It's just the yonder pouches provide a nice lock away where it's away and they don't have to think about it. I think school committee members can support full funding for mental health, making sure that we have that available to our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I lost my place. I'm
That's okay.
sorry.
I was first on that one.
Yeah, okay. All right, Ms. Purcell. As a potential school committee member, what will your primary focus be? Financial issues or educational policy, and why?
My focus is educational policy. That is the main principle of the school committee, is the educational welfare of our students. And I think that that's what we have to keep an eye on. We evaluate policy and curriculum, and resources is a big part of our discussions, but I think there has been an undue expectation that we can cut the budget to lower property taxes. And I don't think that's fair to our schools and our students and our community.
Louise and I have a platform called All A's for Charahoe. The first A is academic excellence. Absolutely, that has to be the first priority, but we also have to be fair to the taxpayer. That's our second A, affordability. If you took all 3,000 counties in the United States and stacked them in like a skyscraper, you'd have 3,000 floors. And if you got in at the ground floor and pushed the button for Charahoe, you go up 2,882 floors. We have one of the highest property taxes in the country. This district is well funded. We just need to be better at how we use this money. And the money has to be targeted toward educational outcomes. And if educational outcomes are on every school committee agenda, we will find a way to get improvements without additional costs.
My focus is students first. A lot of our issues could be solved with asking what's best for students. Academics and learning come in various shapes and sizes. It's not a one size fits all. It's not all in front of a computer. It's not all in front of a class, in front of a teacher. It's not all in the same building. It's not all the same way. So we have to be multifaceted. We have to offer our kids multiple opportunities and multiple ways to show that they are learning.
There has to be a balance between educational excellence, academic excellence, and being fiscally responsible for the taxpayers. Our All A's for Charahoe platform touts academic excellence first, because we should be the best school district in Rhode Island for what we pay, which is a $70 million all-in budget. But we have to be affordable to the taxpayers who fund our district. That there has to be that balance. One of our other A's is accountability. We are all about results and metrics. If we can set high metrics-based expectations, we have to make sure that we're holding somebody accountable if we don't reach those metrics-based expectations. The other thing I want to talk about relative to accountability is When you espouse a value of excellence, there's no room for bullying in a school district. So academic excellence, affordability, accountability, and academic transparency. I would respectfully disagree with my colleague, Karen, about transparency. Clay and I have an academic transparency petition. We have over 300 signatures of taxpayers who would like to see more transparency in our district.
Already, we have time before your,
Right,
oops,
response,
sure.
So I just want to be realistic about what the school committee can do and be realistic about the parts of our school system and the people that are employed to work on improving academic excellence, to work on improving our curriculum. We have such a good team of employees that work on this work day in and day out, and they're familiar with the expectations of RIDE, and they're familiar with the expectations and the legal obligations that we must meet in order to run our successful public school system. And the school improvement teams are really the boots on the ground that evaluate academic success and set benchmark growth standards to improve scores year over year. That is a diverse team of not just school committee members, but it's parents, community members, teachers, and students. And these robust discussions are open to the public. I'd suggest that, but the school committee is not tasked with the overall vision, the strategic vision.
One of the reasons I originally got involved in 2014 was because Charahoe likes to sue a lot of other schools. In fact, they've sued the charter schools. So you have money on both sides of this equation, both paid by taxpayers, of schools suing each other. We're one of 2 school districts in the state that pays a retainer of $127,000 to our attorney. If we took that money, we could get every student access to ConMingo, an online tutor system, which would free up teachers to help with kids that maybe need a little extra help from a person. So ConMingo isn't the solution to everything. It certainly would have helped me when I was in school, and I think it will help a lot of kids.
Alrighty, we have a few minutes to, yes, oh, I'm sorry.
We owe Ms. Dinsmore 30 more seconds.
Oh, okay. Ms.
We
Dinsmore.
cut you off by mistake when you said 30 seconds,
Oh.
but it's actually a minute for the wild card. So I put this up without thinking.
So I can
30
respond.
seconds.
No, it's only 30
30
seconds.
seconds
Yes.
for the wild. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You've been giving people a minute.
So what you're saying is I have 15 more seconds or 30 seconds or no?
Well, so we've been giving everyone a minute for the
so-
wild card.
Yeah, okay, go for it.
So you.
I'll be darned. Okay.
So-
So I guess what I can say to that is thank you for the extra time. Our platform is a bold platform. Clay and I have a vision to move our school district forward. Our All A's for Charahoe platform includes academic transparency. This is a value that lots of our voters and lots of folks that we've been talking to would like to see us implement with curriculum online, lesson plans online, age-appropriate material being fostered within our district. Thank you.
Right. So we have a couple of minutes to spare, so we have several yes and no questions. So yes and no, no explanation, or you can pass.
Can I ask a question?
Sure thing.
So originally this was 45 minutes. You're still including a closing statement for us.
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Yes or no? Start with you, Mr. Johnson. Do you support a ban of transgender girls participating in girls' sports in the Charahoe district?
Yes, absolutely.
No,
Absolutely, yes.
No.
All right. Second one goes to Ms. Reynolds. Will you support expansion of the cell phone program from the middle school to the high school next year with the yonder pouches?
Yes.
Yes.
So using the yonder pouches at the high school?
Yes.
No.
I'd have to see how it works. Probably not.
All right, one more. Ms. Dinsmore. Would you support opening the Charahoe Act to make it a regional school district with a regional tax?
That's not a yes or no question. That's really challenging to answer in yes or no.
You can pass.
You can.
And then that's going to make me look indecisive, and I'm not an
No.
indecisive person. Can you repeat the question?
Sure thing. Would you support opening the Charahoe Act to make it a regional school district with a regional tax.
Yes.
All right.
I would support the discussion.
Yes.
No.
So for closing statements, we'll start with Ms. Purcell and move. That's 1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay. As a parent, I'm a partner to the school district. Now, not only do I represent families like mine, but I respect and empower all stakeholders to join our discussion. My goals are to continue my service on the school committee as chair of the Health and Wellness Subcommittee and as member of the Budget Subcommittee, the Policy Subcommittee, and the Richmond Safety Team. I'm actively pursuing and fulfilling 4 main priorities. I put students first, I value teachers and staff, I collaborate with the community, and I protect public education. I'm an advocate for our schools because the Charahoe School District is vitally important to the health of our tri-town community. Families support the local economy, strong schools keep property values competitive, and most importantly, the benefits of education have a positive impact on individuals and our society as a whole. I'm currently advocating for a student representative and liaison to join us at the table for important discussions, and I'll keep working to provide structure and understanding around the capital improvement needs of our buildings. I'll keep working hard to meet student needs while serving the community to make sure our taxpayer dollars are spent wisely to deliver results, success, and a return on investment.
I'm next.
Sure thing.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I thought we were going that way. Clay Johnson and I are results-oriented, out-of-the-box thinkers. We want to share 2 out-of-the-box ideas on how to move the district forward. One idea is to keep 5th graders in the elementary school setting. We feel this would better serve 10 to 11-year-old students developmentally and academically. When you look at our 4th to 5th grade test scores in math and reading, it's a steep decline. In math, it goes from 69% meeting or exceeding expectations to 36%. So that's more than a 30% drop. Second, we want to give our capital planning conversations the time and attention it deserves. Again, on this June 18th agenda for the school committee, there were about 37 items. Capital planning and closing a school deserve its own time, its own agenda, and thoughtful, focused, single topic discussions, just like the budget process. We can't have this discussion in stops and starts. We must provide leadership and outline a path forward. We believe that, Clay and I believe we can provide that leadership and ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Jess and I are moms with students in our district. We are involved in our schools on a daily basis. We see what our students are doing. We are talking with other community members and other parents, and we have a good idea of what's happening. We're focused on the budget. We're both on the budget subcommittee. We've revamped the budget. We worked with Tyler and Andrew McQuaid and Clay prior to Jess. We identified the largest increases in our budget so that we could focus on those. I'm not about gimmicks and I'm not about fast talk. I'm about honest conversations and honest solutions.
As Louise said, we are results-oriented, out-of-the-box thinkers. We believe in setting goals and achieving those goals. We will foster and reinforce a mindset of excellence within the Charahoe School District. We evaluate every proposal through the lens of what is best for students and the staff and balance that with what is fair for taxpayers. Our platform touts academic excellence. We should be the best school district in Rhode Island for what we pay, and we must be affordable to the taxpayers and find that balance. We must hold students accountable for inappropriate behavior because when you espouse a value of excellence, bullying should not be tolerated. And we will advocate for the academic transparency that ensures the curriculum is age appropriate. If you agree with our bold vision for Charahoe, Louise Dinsmore and I humbly ask for your vote for the school committee.
Thank you very much. I appreciated this really civil conversation and the education that you gave to the citizens today.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
I hope the 4 of you will stay for the next forum, if at all possible. My name is Nina Rosamondo. I am Chair of the Voter Services Committee for the League in South County. To my right is Christine Martone. She is president of our league. Since I was unaware of your custom, why don't we stand again and do the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our second forum this evening. This one is for the town council candidates. There are 10 candidates running for the 5 seats on the Richmond Town Council. 5 candidates, 4 Democrats, and 1 independent will be participating in the forum this evening. The other 5 candidates did not respond to an invitation to participate. And now I'd like to describe the format again. Sorry, it's a repeat for those of you. It's slightly different because there are more candidates. But there may be some people particularly watching who are new. Candidate seats were determined prior to our beginning through a random drawing. Each candidate will have a closing statement of 1 minute, which you may read, but no opening statement. And that is so that we can ask as many questions as possible. Each candidate will be asked each question and will have 1 minute to answer. A candidate may choose to pass answering any question. The first question will be addressed to the first candidate, Mr. Reynolds. On the left, and then to candidate number 2 until all 5 candidates have responded to the question. The second question will be addressed to candidate number 2, Mr. Madnick, and then to candidate 3, and so on, and back to candidate 1. Each candidate will get an opportunity to answer at least 1 question first. Each candidate will be given 2 wild cards, which may only be used once for 30 seconds to their response to a question or to comment on another candidate's response. I'll also share with you, we're moderating a forum, South Kingstown, earlier this week. And 2 of them were very clever. They saved their wild cards to the end, so they had an extra minute for the closing statement. Never happened before.
So we can do that.
You can do that. It's not against the rules, and we were surprised, and I thought it was actually a good idea, so. Okay, when you raise a card, the moderator will call on you. The league urges you to use these cards to differentiate your position from other candidates. There are 2 timers over here, league members from Hopkinton, who will give a 30-second and a 15-second warning, followed by a stop card. Candidates may complete their sentence, but will be interrupted by the moderator if they continue. The moderator may also interrupt a candidate to ask them to clarify or elaborate on a response. I'm not sure. We had some yes or no questions in the last round. If we have enough time. We do?
No.
No. Okay, none were submitted, so let's forget that. I should say that many questions were submitted by the residents, more than we have time to ask. We chose what I call trending questions or trending topics, and attempted to choose the question that was most clearly written. The league also vets the questions. We don't allow questions that are directed towards one person or are blatantly attacking anybody. And we do our best to, when we reword things, to make them as neutral and clear as possible. Okay, the forum will end with each candidate giving a 1-minute closing statement, beginning with candidate number 5. All right, let's try. Mr. Palmiciano?
Palmiciano, yes.
Palmiciano, all right. And proceeding right to left. with that, and this includes me, since I forgot last time, please shut off your phones and other digital devices at this time and remain silent. This is for the audience until the end of the forum. Please hold your applause until the last candidate has finished their closing statement. And just a request, you don't need to look at us. Look at them. I was watching, the eyeballs were all coming towards me and Chris. Please look towards your constituents. Okay, I'll now turn it over to Chris.
Okay, just have one quick thing to say. Be sure to put your face close enough to the mic so the people in the back can hear you. And if you can't hear me back there, let me know. And please say your name before answering the first question. And after that, we won't need that. So with that, I will start with Mr. Reynolds. The first question is, the education budget is the majority percentage of Richmond taxes. With only a small percentage of Richmond taxes available, what is your strategy in keeping our town moving forward and growing?
I'm Mark Reynolds. I think in order to keep the town moving forward, we need to focus on the things that the residents care about, their quality of life. One thing that was passed a few years ago was a $2 million bond for road repaving. And we've started doing projects with that. And we need to continue to do that because that makes a difference in people's lives. And that's something that people care about. We don't have garbage pickup in Richmond. We have a transfer station. We need to keep that affordable for residents so that they can continue to use that resource. We need to find alternative sources of revenue, grants, earmarks from the federal government, other ways that we can fund the things that we want to do on the municipal side of the budget. And also, we need to spend money wisely. We need to look for efficiencies when we can find them. We need to look for alternative ways to do things. And that's my answer.
Thank you, Dan Madnick. So that's an interesting question. So one of the things that a lot of people talk about when we're up canvassing, obviously number one issue, and you say, all right, what's your biggest concern living in Richmond? Taxes. We just heard from the school committee, 80% of the budget goes towards the school. So the town municipal budget is 20% of what you're taxed on. So we need people that are able to be proactive on the town council, that are thinking of ways to spend our money wisely and efficiently. Also think of ways on how to increase revenue. As Mark mentioned, one of the items is the transfer station. We pay quite a bit of money to around resource recovery per ton. One of the things that I'd like to discuss as a town council to validate the drawbacks or the merits of doing this is instituting a compost program. If we can save money that we're spending to bring our trash to Johnston, we can save the taxpayers money and potentially sell the compost and make additional revenue. That's just one idea. Thank you.
Could you ask the question?
Absolutely. The education budget is the majority percentage of Richmond taxes. With only a small percentage of Richmond taxes available, what is your strategy in keeping our town moving forward and growing?
Well, most people who moved here, including myself, moved here because it's a rural town. We don't want our town to become a Chapel View or a Warwick, or even what's happening in North Kingstown right now. I think that it would benefit the town greatly to have a professional grant writer whose number one job within the town is to work at bringing more money in, more federal money, more special money, looking for every nook and cranny, every loophole. We have a great town staff. Our town administrator does a lot of that work now, but her job encompasses quite a bit more than that. And she can't donate the time or dedicate the time that she needs to. So a professional grant writer would really benefit our town.
I'd like to use my wild card right now.
Sure thing.
I just want to add to what Mark said. I actually think that's a great idea. In the town council this past session, there was discussion of an economic development director. I think that was a good idea. I think the proposed implementation was poor. I don't think you should have should have discussed swapping out the health services director for that. But I think taking some responsibility off the town admin and the town planner and creating a part-time job for a consultant that can work with our applicants and developers and landowners, as well as go out for grant applications. They're a really smart use of funds and resources for this town.
Thank you. Samantha Wilcox. To keep the town growing, when most of our budget goes to the school, I think we do need to continue to support our schools. I moved to Richmond for its rural character and the education. My youngest child just started high school, so very soon I will be a part of the population that does not have a child in the district. But I will continue to support the schools because that's what keeps our property value up. That's what keeps our community thriving. We see Charahoe graduates who can't afford to stay here, and I think that's unfortunate. And that we need to change that and make Richmond a little more affordable to live in. With honestly the suggestions that have already been said, town council did try to bring on a grant writer by way of hiring a full-time clerk for the zoning department instead of a part-time, which would free up some time for town staff to take care of that. Town staff's just too busy. So I definitely support additional staff on that front too. Thank you.
Mr. Palmachino?
Jim Palmachino. I hope everyone can hear me all right. I'll try to project my voice. I'm used to being up here and I'm known for being kind of loud. So thank you. It's a great question. As we know, 80% or 80 cents on the dollar goes towards our school budget. We know that. And anyone who has a child who's graduated or been involved with knows the value of the investment in that future. Canvassing, I had a great opportunity to speak with a parent who was so proud to tell me that their child was graduating from Charahoe this year and going to Brown University. That is just one example of the excellence. I had 2 kids in the system. I love what they're learning. I believe the approach shouldn't be to cut off our hand to find another success. What we should do is find a way to offset the cost of those taxes by creating a business culture and bringing in business to offset those taxes. Not reducing the excellence that all brought us here and has brought these people here and businesses here. What we need to do is find another way to bring in more business to offset that revenue. I also think we can have conversations. Should we have a council and group to work collaboratively together, talk with our state, federal counterparts to bring in as much money as we can for the district?
Mr. Met, you're next in line. In order to prevent further tax increases, there will need to be commercial development. What ideas do you have for development in Richmond?
All right, this is a really good question. So out of the 5 members up here, I'm the most experienced member when it comes to land use. I'm the vice chair of the planning board. I've been on the planning board for 5 years. I have really in-depth knowledge of our comprehensive community plan, what it takes for applicants to go through the planning process, go through the development process, come up to the planning board, get their plan in concert with our comp plan, get through the planning board. There is a limited amount of business and commercial and industrial zone in this town. So out of 25,000 acres, we have 1,000 acres that are zoned for that type of development. Of the 1,000 acres, a lot of the acreage that is available is owned by a few select landowners. So we really have to engage them in a respectful manner. We have to stop meddling when they involve themselves in development applications. We have to talk with them and see what it's going to take to actually invest in this town. There is a barrier to investment. It takes money to develop. Without a public water system, which we have, or sewage capacity, it's very expensive to develop in this town. Thank you.
Again, I think that the biggest opportunity we have for change and improvement is our existing downtown area. Many of the buildings are empty or have businesses that are not thriving. We have seen the closure, I believe the tally is 4 businesses closing in just the last month. It really troubles me to see that. We have some businesses that are dug in and they've made the investment that they need to make, but we have to be careful with the development so that we don't damage the rural character of our town. Again, we don't want a Chapel View or a Route 2 in Warwick. We want something that integrates well with the rural canoeing and kayaking and fishing and hiking that we all move to this town for. Thank you.
Awesome. So as an incumbent town councilor, I do just want to state one thing that I supported was the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, which protected our water supply and increased our commercial use codes by 27. I could be mistaken there, but a lot of use codes, 27 at least. So we are working towards economic development and trying to move our town forward while keeping it rural. I think a strategy we can use is to market our town. We can just pitch it as something that people want to go to. And I did that as a newly appointed town councilor. I made cold calls to vacant buildings and realtors. I actually still get phone calls about the property over on Route 3 that's been vacant for a while and what the town can do about that. And I've encouraged those inquiries to contact the planning department and see about rezoning them if they want. I think we also need to take advantage of our ecotourism opportunities. We see our neighbors in Charlestown doing that frequently, like with the trolls. But that's just too big of a project to bring to a council that can't have discussions. And that's the simplest way I can put it. That's all I got.
You know, one of the things that I bring from my experience of being in sales, marketing, and business for over 25 years is a keen eye for branding and strategic vision. And I think that's one of the pieces that we've been missing. We have an opportunity here. And again, in conjunction with a comprehensive plan, we can have town and country. We can have both. We have town centers that are identified for development in the comprehensive plan that are in desperate need of revitalization. And I think with a strategic vision of where we want to be in 20, 25, 30 years, combined with a opportunity to rebrand and make people realize that not only is Richmond the gateway to Southern Rhode Island, but it could be the outdoor entertainment capital of Rhode Island. I mean, we have such rural beauty, trails, we have rivers and streams. Combine that with seasonal opportunities for recreation, we could really be the leader in that field for Rhode Island. Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds?
So as I think Mr. Trimmer said, we don't necessarily need new development. It would be great if we could revitalize the properties that we have, particularly in the Wyoming area, which has been stagnant for a period of time. And I think the way we encourage that revitalization of that area is before someone's going to invest money in our town, they want to see that the town government and the town council functions well, that it functions with integrity, that it functions cooperatively. And developers looking at this last town council saw councilors rejecting the recommendations of the town staff on hiring an electrical inspector and hired a political crony instead who ended up getting terminated. We saw a councilor try to skirt the open bidding process. That doesn't encourage development. We need a working town council that acts with integrity and responsibility to encourage developers to want to invest their money here. And if I could just extend for 30 seconds or a minute. As Jim said, we need to leverage our proximity to open spaces and develop ecotourism. We need to have a council that is approachable, that has clear paths for developers who knows they can talk to the staff, they can talk to the council to get some assistance so they know what the process is. And the last thing, which is overlooked, we have tons of home-based businesses, eggs and bread, and we need to try to encourage that degree of development, if you will.
Mr. Trimmer,
Yes.
this sort of follows up all these questions. I think you're must have read questions before because does Richmond have adequate infrastructure to facilitate economic development of business other than those in service industry? And please explain.
Richmond is unique in the fact that we have a water system that Exeter doesn't have, a water system that Hopkinton doesn't have. They actually tag on to our water system. So that is one piece. The other thing we have in our favor is we are at the center of two of the most heavily traveled roads in Rhode Island, Route 138, which is one of the few east to west roads, and Route 95. So that gives us an advantage that other towns don't have. Just to go on board with what several other people have said. I am the current town council president. I've served, this is my third term. I was vice president at one time. I felt like a ringmaster this time, or a referee. We had two very disruptive counselors, one specifically that was very disruptive, put us in the news, gave us a bad reputation, and brought really negative attention to our town, negative attention to the developers in our town, and I could go on, but you get the point. I could work with these 4 people. They share my views, they share my ethics, they share my goals. I think we could do a lot. Thank you.
All right, so to answer your question, if we have adequate infrastructure, no, we don't. I think we're close, but we're like, in order to keep our rural character, we're very close, but we're not quite there. The biggest thing that came to me on the fly now was that Main Street really needs to be widened. As it is right now in front of Charahoe Plaza between CVS, it's not even enough room for an ambulance to get by if there's 2 people going down one way. There's no way for us to get anything, well, maybe there's a way, but we really need to have that widened if we're gonna have increased traffic that's gonna come with further development. Probably need it increased either way. And to echo other concerns and things you kind of already touched home on, we need to invest in ourselves. If we invest in ourselves, then developers will want to invest in us as well. I think, you start with self-care first, and then you reach out and help others. So yeah, I think some great points have already been made up because this is a really big topic and it comes up at every door. So that's why it seemed like we already had the answers before.
Yeah, great, thank you. Adequate infrastructure for business, it's, adequate is such a subjective term. When I think about infrastructure, I think about, everything from what Samantha said of widening roads, better curb cuts, sidewalks, sewage, even, gas lines, right? Those are pieces that would have to be part of a long-term strategic plan for the town, right? We're not just going to turn around and say, let's put this in that has an impact on the taxpayers, that has an impact on business. But I think in order to have a vision for what we want the development areas to be in the long term, we need to make sure that we take those things into consideration as part of that long-term strategic plan. What do we need? And there are a lot of businesses that would like to come into Richmond that conform to our comprehensive plan as agricultural businesses, but they can't do it because they don't have the space or they don't have the infrastructure to do it. And then we look at the areas where we have business space available. Who wants to put in their new business next to something that's declining? So I think those are the pieces: infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and more. So I'm out of time. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question? I just want to make sure I focus on the.
Sure. Does Richmond have adequate infrastructure to facilitate economic development of business other than those in the service industry? Please explain.
So other than those in the service industry. Well, we are certainly restricted, mainly because we don't have a sewer system and probably never will. And I think that's perfectly fine. So we need to focus on kind of light industrial type businesses. And as Mark pointed out in a prior answer, we are located next to a major highway and major roads all around us. So as any business that needs transportation, we're perfectly suited for. Look at Riverhead putting in their new distribution center. They're going to use us as a distribution center because of our proximity to roads. So we need to continue to maintain the roads that we have. And we also need to make sure we're able to deal with storms and other things that could come and disrupt utilities. So that means making sure that we're continuing to trim off dead trees, because if the power goes out in Wyoming and you got a business there, you're out of business.
All right, so there are a lot of people here who've hit on a lot of different topics, but there are 2 main things I want to hit on. One, we have something called the comprehensive community plan. That's what drives a lot of the land use decisions and a lot of the decisions that the town council and the planning board need to make. On top of that, we have something called the hazard mitigation plan. Without a town council that's willing to be proactive and actually look at the implementation plans of both of those documents that they approved of, we're not going to have any infrastructure improvements in order to support new businesses in this town. We can have new businesses and we can keep the rural character of Richmond. We have a state designated growth area in Wyoming. There were a few things that we needed to do in order to encourage business on that area, which has a water line, which has already been mentioned. The first thing was passing the Aquifer Protection Overlay District revision. We needed that because there was a very clear statement in there that said any use of a hazardous material was prohibited. That line is gone now, which means we can facilitate development. Then we need to, as Mark said, we have to go into our hazard mitigation plan and actually do something about the actions in there, because we can't have business development if we keep having climate hazards that affect businesses. Thank you.
Next question is.
For me.
All right. What municipal services do you wish to add or remove?
This is a great one, actually. I love it. And it's something that I don't feel like is being addressed enough. Richmond really needs a new community center. It's something that came up a lot in the last election, and it's something I still feel really strongly about. The current community center or senior center is not accessible to our seniors. They have trouble getting up and down the elevator that's constantly breaking. Additionally, that'll also support our police department because they want that space. They need that space. They are growing. And when the seniors move out, I hate to say it like that, but yeah, when the seniors move out, the police can move up and move in and have adequate space for themselves. If you're ever having a meeting upstairs and the police are interrogating somebody downstairs, they can hear you. I don't know how clearly, so keep your secret secret, but they can definitely hear you walking around. They can hear you, whatever. And that's not just an effective way for them to be working. So those are two municipal services in one that I would really strongly support. Thank you.
Great. I'll echo, and having been on council 2020, 2022, one of the topics that had come up was the idea of having a public space that was more appropriate than our community center, our senior center, our community center that we have above the police station. And I think we tried to approach that from a fiscally responsible perspective of looking at what we could effectively do without burdening the taxpayers. And I think that's one of the challenges we face. I think over time, we are going to need to confront that. If any of you have not been to the Community Senior Center, I encourage you to go there and see if you can make it up and down those stairs really safely. It's not the easiest thing. The other thing I think as a service, what we could benefit from in the town would be some time of a full-time staff writer, a grant writer on staff, because I think a grant writer has the opportunity to pay for their own funding, because that is an opportunity to recapture money that could add great value. We've done a good job of that already. We can do a lot more. I think that's what I would say.
I would echo obviously the need for more recreation opportunities for folks in town. But another thing that I think folks forget is a lot of people, particularly the seniors, can be isolated living in a rural area. They have barriers to transportation, to get to medical appointments, to get groceries. So if we could add some kind of transportation service through a grant, we know Megan Carter got a grant to get a bus for Wood River Health to help transport people. If we could get something like that or collaborate with a neighboring town to provide some kind of transportation opportunity for people who might be isolated in town without transportation. And the same would go for how can we get outreach to people, get them groceries and things as a way of supporting folks who can be isolated here. And isolation is not great for mental health. So it all kind of wraps together. So if we could add something, if I had a wish list, that would be one of the things I'd put on it.
Yeah, I think Mark, that's actually a really good point that he makes about reaching out to our elderly and the people that are less able to do things. So we have a health services director. I think right now, we're in our first or second year. I think it's worth seeing in a year or so when that the money runs out to determine if that's something you want to continue. So far, I've heard very positive things. One thing that I know people have mentioned to me, we have a lack of services, obviously, compared to bigger cities that have much higher revenue. People are looking at trash pickup. I think it's worth having a discussion of what that would cost the town, the merits and drawbacks. We don't necessarily going to implement it, but we've never actually had the conversation. The other thing people bring up, which is kind of odd, is the transfer station. I mean, very simple thing for commuters that come home late like myself is, could we have the transfer station open late 1 or 2 nights a week so I can drop my trash off at 7 instead of having to get up on Saturday or Sunday and do it? I mean, that's a really pragmatic issue that town council can handle within one or 2 meetings. Those are the types of discussions that we need to have. Thank you.
I have to ask you to repeat the question because I've been listening to all of these answers and I've forgotten the root of the question now.
All right. Does Richmond have, oh, wait a minute, yeah. Does Richmond have, oh, no, I'm sorry, renew one. It's getting late for me. What municipal services do you wish to add or remove?
Okay. I can't really think of anything to add. I know that the private trash pickup is so inexpensive and so reasonable that trash pickup would be very expensive if it were town-wide and paid for by the town. I think we're just right as far as that is concerned. I'd like to see more transportation in the town. I'd like to see more playground facilities in the town. We've expanded one playground. I'd like to see a lighted, high-quality basketball court. I love to play basketball. I don't have a court in my yard, and the current facilities stink. So that being said, about it all.
All right, Mr. Parmigiano,
You're getting better with that.
I am. I'm not sure if I can keep it up. What ideas do you have about increasing the amount of affordable housing in Richmond?
Great, it's a great question. And I think the first thing I'll say is let's make a distinction between affordable housing and subsidized, because it's an issue that people oftentimes confuse and it runs off the table. Affordable housing is set by a mean income in the town. So if my daughter, who is going to be who is a senior, wants to go to college and then move back to Richmond, it is impossible for her right now to find a house that she can afford as a school teacher, a social worker, whatever she wants to do to live in this town, unless I was to, go and build an addendum onto my property, which I'm sure Dan will mention. I think for affordable housing, I think there have to be incentives. We are a rural community, and what's interesting, the state is asking us to have more opportunities for affordable housing, but there's things that we need from the state. So, for example, what we have to do and what we have to work with is different from an urban community. We don't have the ability to have the density that they do because we don't have the water lines everywhere. So in order to have an offset, there's got to be a financial give and take. I'm going to use my extension thing. Thank you. There's got to be a financial give and take. And I think with people who are willing to negotiate in good faith and have the ability to strategically plan and negotiate, we can work to look at, okay, if we're going to have an opportunity to bring in more, because every time a house comes in, we all know everyone says, child in the school. So we need to be able to offset that. Maybe there's an opportunity to make those compromises for having more affordable housing built, where there can be an offset for the budget of the school to compensate for that, because those are some of the challenges we face. I think we have to think there is an urban and there's a rural, and we have to think about what our rural needs are. Thank you.
So I think number one is it's important. We recently had a lot of changes in the affordable housing rules. So I think it's important to get the word out to folks about what they can now do with their property to create accessory dwelling units or like in-law apartments. So let people know what they can do to their property to add an affordable housing component to it. And really all that means is making it available to someone whose income is going down, either because they're retired and they don't need as much space and they need to downsize, or if for younger folks who are just moving out of the house and need some place to live that's affordable. It's about getting the word out about that, but also we allow developers to pay a waiver fee in order to get out of having to include affordable units in their development. We should stop doing that. If you're building a development, you should be required to build some small starter houses so that would be considered affordable for someone who's either retired or just starting out their life in Richmond.
I have so many things going on in my head right now. All right, so Jamie hit on something really important. Low to moderate income housing is not the same as Section 8 low income housing. I want to make that clear. Low to moderate income housing is 80 to 120% of your area median income. For Richmond, that's $100,000. That means people that make between $80,000 and $120,000 qualify for deed restricted affordable housing. These are people that are teachers, firefighters, engineers just starting out. People like myself, me and my wife would have qualified for affordable housing. We have a new zoning ordinance for adaptive reuse. Perhaps the Sharpert Mill and Alton would be perfect for adaptive reuse. We're talking mixed use housing with condos and apartments that wouldn't bring a lot of kids into the school system. More multifamily housing in terms of like condo units, which are actually less expensive to build for developers. They make more money. Mark hit on the inclusionary zoning requirement. The town actually we just rescinded that, so maybe we have to go revisit it and make some changes to it. Thank you.
So I'm gonna approach this from another point of view. Being an independent, I can do that. We could make all housing more affordable if the state taxes were lower. If we work with our state representation, we work within our town to be good stewards, good fiscal stewards, all housing would become more affordable. Your housing, my housing, any affordable housing that we build, any low-income housing that we build, all of that would be more affordable rather than picking and choosing. Everyone would win if we just put the brakes on once in a while when it comes to taxes. I have 15 more seconds. I do think affordable housing is important. I have 2 daughters, and I know that my youngest daughter pays double what my mortgage was before I paid it off for her apartment.
Oh, my turn? Great. So what's great about going last is that everyone takes your answers. They hit them all. They hit mixed use development. They hit senior housing. I knocked on a door and somebody told me the waiver fee that Mark had mentioned was compared to a payoff. They felt that it was somebody trying to pay off the town to not have to fulfill their obligations. I never thought of it like that, but it really just hit home to me. I'm very concerned with affordable housing, and like it's been mentioned many times, it's not the same as low income housing. I would qualify for it as a legal professional, a paralegal, and my income from my household would make it so that I could be a part of that right now. And I'm concerned for when my children grow up and they won't be able to live in the town that they consider home. They grew up here, and we're seeing that, as I mentioned before, with a lot of our Charahoe grads coming out of school and they're unable to stay and they're moving north because there's nowhere else to be. So I think what we really need is just a team who is able and willing to work on affordable housing for our community. That's all I got.
We'll start again with Mr. Reynolds. What is your stance on the municipal court?
I support the municipal court. I was on the Charter Review Commission, and that was one of the recommendations that we made to the voters, that we establish a municipal court. The voters agreed, and they passed that charter referendum. Unfortunately, members of the town council, or actually our opponents, are pledging to try to remove the municipal court. And I support it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it will keep the issues in Richmond. Right now, if we have to bring a landowner to court, we've got to go to Wakefield. We've got to send our people to Wakefield. For traffic violations, we have to send our police officers to Wakefield, to the court there. If we handle them in-house in Richmond, you'll have a judge who's invested in this town, who can work out issues with property owners and reach a real solution. Judges in Wakefield don't want to hear about housing violations in Richmond. It's much more efficient to do it here.
I think it's important to abide by the will of the voters. It passed by referendum. I think it is worth implementing it for at least a year at minimum. And after a year, go back, revisit it, look at the benefits, how it helped. The municipal court is not supposed to be punitive. It's supposed to get people into compliance with their ordinances. One of the reasons I joined the planning board and I was pushed to join it was because we had a developer that was not following the conditions and the requirements in the town. And it was harming people in my community. And I just came to town, I literally sat in the vault and read through all the archives and said, what is this guy required to do? And if we had a municipal court, we would be able to force the conditions and rules that he had agreed to do. It's very difficult with the current staff that we have now to enforce the rules fairly for everyone. This isn't picking and choosing who we're going to enforce the rules on. This is, everyone has to abide by the same rules. That's how we have a good community. And I think it's worth at least seeing what this does for the town at least a year. And not just saying, yeah, we're gonna abolish it, off the start. Thank you.
I support and defend the municipal court. Our opponents, who aren't here, are looking to discontinuing it before it starts. It gives the town leverage over people who are serial violators. It gives us, it's revenue neutral, it won't cost us anything. We have an opportunity, we discussed it, and the council majority passed a resolution to try it out for a year. I think it will be beneficial. I don't see any downsides. I only see upsides. It would keep our police officers more available. It would just totally benefit the town. My concern is that if we don't get the right balance of a council, we'll lose that opportunity. And some people have ulterior motives for that. I don't.
Awesome. So I brought the municipal court to the table for my council to discuss, and I just want to thank Vice President Nassani and President Trimmer for supporting it as well. And that's how it passed by a 3-2 vote. After, again, the voters approved it, like was already said. I believe a municipal court is less expensive. It's going to be casual and less tense for when people want to resolve an issue. And as President Trimmer said, it's revenue neutral. We see Hopkinton actually makes money on theirs. I think it's about $1,000 a year, drop in the bucket, but that's the same funding for like the Recreation Commission. The reason the opposition is against it is because they think it's going to cost us a lot of money, which is just false. But even so, to me, public services are about serving the public, not making money. We are not running this town like a business. We are public servants here to serve the people. And I also just want to clarify a statement that President Trimmer had said. It is not a year trial. I know that we had discussed that, but these are live ordinances that are in our books. If we want to discuss it after a year and then choose to take it back, we can, but there's no stipulation on it being a year. Sorry, Mark.
Oh, no, I love working with Sam. She is great in keeping me in line.
A tough job. Someone's got to do it.
All right, I'll beat the clock on this one because everyone's made the case already. I sought the opinion of experts, people who know how things are going on in this town, when I was investigating the validity and the need for this. And each of those that I spoke to said, look, this is going to help bring efficiencies. It's going to help our town, and it's not going to be a burden. And I think we could just stop with the fact that say the voters approve this is what the voters want. So I support it. And I think it's intended to help residents, not harm them. I think that's it. Beat the clock. 28 seconds.
I guess you get the prize right now. Yeah, we'll see. All right, Mr. Madnick. What ideas do you have about increasing the amount of affordable? Did I ask that question? Yes, I did. Okay, gee.
Too bad.
Yeah.
We got no more.
I'm sorry. What are your ideas about decreasing polarization on the town council and in the community?
I mean, that is a really interesting question. So my background, I'm a supervisor at Electric Boat. I work with a diverse group of people from different backgrounds and cultures. It's important to me that we have open and respectful communication amongst each other. As you've seen tonight, all 5 of us have, submitted differences in opinions somewhat. But I feel like everyone here works well together. But my number one priority at work is to make sure that everyone that works under me is valued and that they are respected. One of the things that I would like to implement, and I'll take it out of my town council stipend or my personal cognizance, I don't care. Every town council member should read the book Crucial Conversations and learn what it's like to have a discussion when there's opposing viewpoints, it's high stakes and it's emotional. If you can do that and you can have those crucial conversations when you're discussing town business, then the town council can work more in concert and do what's in the best interest of this town, not what's in the best interest of the individual. We have to work for this community, the 8,000 people in it, not just the party that we're a part of. Thank you.
As the lone independent, I feel that I could work with both sides to come to a consensus. That's what I have tried to do as council president this last term. It's been very difficult. We've had some very, very outlandish and unreasonable behavior at council meetings, and it's made us embarrassed. I have tried to keep emotions low, keep people on track. I mentioned this before, but I believe that the ethics of the candidates up here tonight, very high ethical standards, very open mind. Albert Einstein said that a measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And I think we as a group could work together to find that change.
So yeah, I kind of want to echo Mark a little bit and say that we have a high ethical standard. And that may have been my downfall when I started. I had a very high expectation for the Open Meetings Act and quickly learned that well, I knew that was a floor, not a ceiling, but my floor was a little higher than other people's floor. And when I asked it to stop, when I like President Trimmer and Vice President Saney and even Councilor Sheehan has always respected my boundaries. When I said, I'm not comfortable talking about that, I already talked to somebody else or whatever happened. And that initial start at our council did cause a lot of tension. And I'm grateful that Mark was able to move past it. And now we have a very cordial relationship because he was a part of that OMA issue I had. And that carried through to everything. It carried through just the tip of the iceberg really was the Purcell appointment. You know, that caused so much polarization and the divide between our political parties. But again, we moved past it. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to take ownership of our actions, apologize, and move on. And that's not something that we necessarily see from all current members of council. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this one. I think I want to tell you, the voters, who I am, and I think that's the best way I can describe this. So one, I'm very proud of two people as individuals who support my campaign. You might know Carrie Healy, who's the former Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, who served with Mitt Romney, is a financial supporter of my campaign. Andrew Yang, who ran for president, is a financial supporter of my campaign. These are two people who are on the sides of the spectrum who see me as a leader among my peers. So I'm very proud to have their support, and that speaks to who I am as an individual. Second, I am the Rhode Island co-chair, the purple co-chair of the Rhode Island Brave Red Angels Alliance. And if you know anything about Brave Red Angels, you know we are about depolarization. So I got that there. That's fine. And the third is, I would say, you know, I run in my workday enablement sessions. I run training sessions. In my latest classes, I had a member from Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, Russia in the classroom. If I can handle that, I can handle Richmond. Thank you.
I mean, clearly, you know, folks need to learn to disagree without being disagreeable. And it's easy if you focus on ideas and focus on reason and not who the person is who has the idea. And I think that's where we need to keep the focus. Focus on the facts, focus on the ideas. We're all going to have differing opinions. We're all going to have different ideas. But if we set the example, then that will be followed. And I think, you know, Mark has tried to do that with the current council, and, you know, it's been difficult. But I think if we continue to focus on that, that will catch on. And it's not just among council members. People who come before the council need to be treated with respect. The town staff needs to be treated with respect. And if we set that example, then that will bring us a long way toward decreasing this polarization.
Did Dan already go? Because I want to use my wild card, but I wanted to wait till the end. You did? How much time do I get with this? 30 seconds. All right, I just wanted to just reiterate, because I know I poked at Mark a little bit with the Purcell appointment. Our council got off to a really rough start. That's literally the tip of the iceberg, and the public didn't see a lot. And as council president, he could have, and I was the only lone Democrat on this council. He could have ignored me. He could have stuck with the gang of three. He could have not let me speak at meetings and ignored all my phone calls. And I think that by him not doing that and still continuing to take my phone calls and treating me the way he would want his daughters treated, really helped like us move past the decisions that we made and found things that we did agree on. Because we disagreed on a lot of things and found a lot of common ground as well. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, Mr. Trim. This is a different question for sure. What is your position on ending Richmond's police department third shift and transferring that responsibility to the Rhode Island State Police?
Our current chief was a former state police officer. And he is one of the finest chiefs of police in any town anywhere. Our police force is one of the most professional police forces in South County. I think we'd be taking a step backwards by doing that. The state police is trying to reduce their footprint and close the barracks in town. I'm familiar because I have friends that live in Exeter. They rely on the state police for police protection. They wait a long, long time. Somebody could be dead, and the person who committed the murder gone by the time the state police show up. We do have a fine state police force. I'm not putting them down. I'm just talking about logistics here. And logistically, we could not go forward by going backwards. How much time?
We're done.
That was your
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I was.
Great. So actually that segues great into what I was going to say. Actually, almost about a year ago, I hit a deer coming home on Route 102. It took the police 20 minutes to get to me on the side of a dark road over by Wawaloom Elementary School. I was really grateful for the person who stopped behind me, but that was really scary and I was really shooken up because I'd never hit a deer before. Another example I want to give is one time after town council, which got out at midnight because we were here talking about the electrical inspector all night. Mr. Palmisano and I were actually just talking outside and we hear a bunch of children playing at the playground across the street over here. And I'm thinking, what kids are playing at the playground at midnight? They're up to no good. Whatever they're doing, they're not supposed to be there. Those kids are on a dangerous road and they needed to be protected. And those are just two great examples of our third shift police and their necessity. And I don't even know if that's really an option. I've heard that as a rumor around town that our opposition wants to defund them or not have a third shift police, but I hope it doesn't happen. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. So, just three things I'll make a point on. Third shift, right? Can anyone tell me the break-ins that are happening around town, what time are they happening? Because I think you want to have your police on duty, and I think your response time for the state police just isn't going to be adequate. We've seen an increase in organized gangs coming to this exit off and plaguing our community at that time. Not a good idea. Two, if we're serious about economic development, taking away police force is moving in the wrong direction. We need to invest in our community, and realistically, part of that is going to be investing in the police force as we move forward. Because so the idea would be just counterproductive to economic growth. So that is the second. And third, many of these officers are members of our community, valued members of the community who do so much for the community above and beyond just being on a police force. And I frankly find it short-sighted and insulting. So thank you.
So it's a bad idea for the reasons that have been mentioned. You're taking away that first line of defense or that first line of assistance in the middle of the night when people need it most. We have a hard time retaining police officers right now. Okay, and we're going to reduce their numbers. And yes, the state police might respond to an emergency in the middle of the night, but if it's a normal call like a domestic, they'll take care of the immediate stuff. But who's going to have to follow up the following day? The Richmond officer who's coming in on first shift or second shift. So you're going to increase the burden on your existing officers. You're going to reduce the overall department itself. So you don't have officers who can fill in if someone's out sick. So your overtime costs are going to go up. So it moves us backward in so many ways. It's mind-boggling that anyone would even consider the idea in the first place.
All right, so this one hits me personally. My wife had what's called a precipitous home birth. She went to active labor, and within that time frame, about 15 minutes, she went from active labor and gave birth to my second son in my master bathroom. That was at 1 a.m. in the morning. If it wasn't for the third shift of our police, it's very possible with my wife bleeding out on the floor that she would have died. The first responder that was there was a Richmond police officer within 15 minutes. The EMS came afterwards. If we are to get rid of the third shift of police to save ourselves a couple dollars, it's going to harm people in this town. It would have harmed me personally. And let's remember that we recently had a domestic violence incident that led in someone's murder. I understand that third shift didn't stop that, but it's very important that we have first responders that are able to get to people in need as quickly as possible, and getting rid of our local police force is not going to help that.
Last question.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let me use my extra time if I want.
I know, and if, somebody, I saw some people sitting in the audience, so they might have heard this question before.
Oh.
Being elected to town council is more than just occupying a seat. It's critical that our town council members have the competencies required to lead our community. In your opinion, what would you identify as 3 critical competencies that any town council person should possess to effectively represent our community? This is a great question.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a second to think of 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I wrote down was listening. I think that we need to listen to our constituents, we need to listen to our voters, we need to listen to our experts. We just need to take a second to listen and hear each other. And on that, I think we also need to be effective communicators. This council has been tense, and sometimes I look back at our meetings and I'm thinking, this is just because somebody was not able to effectively communicate their thoughts. And there's very recent examples of that, like with our bidding process and just everything that happens there. I'm getting a different idea than our town administrator, and then another counselor has another idea of what that person had said. We need to be effective communicators, and I'm limited to 3. I didn't write down communication, but I'm going to say we need to be able to collaborate, and we need to be able to have open discussions with each other at the table. That's something, again, that this council is lacking. And it was very disappointing last night when I brought an idea to the table just to open up a discussion, and it turned into a personal attack. I'm going to use my time just because I can. It's our last question. So I think that those are really just the qualities that are needed for somebody in a town councilor. And they're just very basic ones, not even going into our professional developments. These are just human qualities that we all should possess either way. Thank you.
Great question. And, I'd say the 3 that I would focus on would be, one is a strategic vision and an ability to look long-term for planning. I think there are a lot of things we get caught up in the day-to-day goings on, but we need to be able to collectively step back and look at the long-term for the benefit of our community. That would be 1. 2, really, really important is a team player and consensus builder. I think you cannot go into any conversation, having been on council, I know firsthand that you don't get everything you want out of a conversation. And if you expect to get everything you want, then you're in the wrong seat. So that would be 2. And the 3rd is entrepreneurial spirit. I think we need to really engage and look at all those opportunities, engage with our partners regionally and statewide, and to do this. And in my 10 seconds remaining, I'll just say this, that in my years of sales working, with executives around the world and dealing with high-level companies, these are the kind of skills that are at play there. You have to have these skills to be successful, and I hope to bring that to Richmond. Thank you.
I would say, similar to what Jim just said, you need to have an openness to new and different ideas. It may not be your idea, but it still could be a good idea. And you need to be open and not be too proud to accept someone else's idea if it may be better than yours. If you're not willing to accept that, you're not going to be able to function well as a town council member. You have to be able to look at the big picture. Okay, we get so focused sometimes on the nuts and bolts of things, and we forget to look at the forest as opposed to the trees. You need to be a big picture thinker, and you need to be able to look ahead, because so many things could happen long term. And we need to be focused on those, not just the short term things that could happen during the 2 years that we're in office, because we want to leave this town better than we found it. When we leave office, we want it to be better than we found it. And this may sound obvious, but integrity and honesty.
All right, so I echo what everyone else said, but I'm gonna give you three. Flexible thinking. You need to be humble. You need to know what you don't know. That's the same thing. You need to be proactive. I was just gave a very passionate discussion about the third shifts in the police. I'm willing to have that discussion, but let's have it respectfully. And if we have the discussion, bring the merits and the drawbacks. Could we do it? Could it work? I'm not opposed to changing my passionate thoughts on that if the conversation goes that way. I mean, that's part of what I do as a supervisor. It's not a dictatorship at work. I ask my employees, some that have 6 months, I say, all right, you've been working on this job for a while. What decision should I make? You tell me what you know, because now they are more experienced with that work than I am. And this is about listening to other people, listening to subject matter experts, trusting your staff. Again, and also what I've said before is being proactive, making sure that, as town council members, we're not just coming to the meetings and going through the motions. It's actually doing the work behind the scenes that needs to be done. Thank you.
I'm gonna approach this from a independent viewpoint. You have to check your ego at the door. After 3 terms on the council, as a councilor, council vice president, and now council president, you check your ego at the door and you let people take credit for something that you and they worked on. You don't need the credit. You're already on the council. You've already gotten elected. A lot of people are encouraged by that, and that's the way to encourage people. Secondly, you need to be approachable. You can't, as everyone else has stated, you cannot reject ideas because you don't like them. Listen. And lastly, and this is very important, especially if you intend to serve more than 1 term or to serve successfully through a term, you have to be able to forgive. You can't be slighted by everything that everyone says. You're not going to please everyone all the time, but you're trying to make all of us who serve are serving. We're not leading, we're serving. And I'm going to add, public service is just that. We're here to make the town a better place. We're not getting rich. This isn't some kind of power trip. We're your servants, and you are electing us to represent you and to help guide the town forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with our closing statements from Mr. Palmisano. No?
Perfect,
Okay.
perfect. All right, and about 1 minute, is it? 1 minute, okay. So as the election approaches, it's really clear that many people have already made up their minds to support candidates who are affiliated as a Democrat or Republican, regardless of flyers, yard signs, Facebook posts, or whatever. So I want to appeal and say this to those who are still undecided. I urge you to consider supporting me for town council as someone who will be dedicated, hardworking, common sense, problem-solving oriented, and a problem solver for this town. I've done it before as your town council vice president, and I'm ready to hit the ground running on day 1 again. On November 5th, you hold the power to make critical decisions that will impact the future of this town. And I ask you to reflect on what you know about all the candidates running for town council. And more importantly, what you don't know. I came here tonight, as was referenced before the school committee, for this job interview, along with all the candidates before you here tonight, to answer questions in an open and fair forum, allowing you to both evaluate me as a candidate and as well what I'm going to use my extension here as what I intend to do to serve our community. It is my hope that I provided you with enough information to make the decision to hire me in November. In my professional experience, if you don't show up for the interview, you can't expect to get the job. So I would also stress the importance of electing a council that can affect change and avoid stagnation and division. To achieve this, I ask you to consider supporting all the people here before you tonight, because we showed up and we will continue to show up once elected every single day when you elect us to council. Your vote matters. I really, truly appreciate it. And we're committed to earning your trust. Thank you.
Ms. Wilcox?
Thank you. I just want to give a little overview for those of you who don't know me yet. I got started with my public service by joining the Conservation Commission because I wanted to meet neighbors who had the same passions that I did about conserving the environment. very quickly learned about a dog park committee and championed that grant of moving it off a disgusting landfill and into a beautiful location it is now. And that led me to run for office. And my three main priorities really is to keep Richmond rural, to bring in beneficial businesses that offset our taxes, and to lead with transparency and openness. And I feel like I've done that on my first term, and I hope to continue to do that into my second. So I urge you guys all to just get out and vote and share with your friends all this information that we have, because we don't have that from our opposition. I'll say this right now. We don't have active volunteers. We have a great team of active volunteers right here. We're already committed to the community. We know how the town works, and we already work together. We know each other's strengths. We know each other's weaknesses, and we're going to work seamlessly on council. Thank you.
I look forward to a fourth term. I look forward to working with the people up here. I feel it's imperative that you elect a team that is going to protect the town employees. The opposition has threatened town employees' jobs. They have driven town employees out. This is really it becomes a very toxic environment when people do that. And our job, we are stewards not only of the town's finances, we are stewards of the town employees so that they can continue to do the excellent work that they do and serve us. Integrity, honesty, the ability to listen, we've beaten that topic to death, but it's important to keep in mind that, like Jim said, we showed up tonight. Thank you.
You want my 30 seconds? I want you to be able to finish. I'll give you my 30.
I'll take I've had the opportunity to be a basketball coach in town. I've been a guest lecturer at the Charahoe Votech School. I've been on the planning board. I was elder affairs representative for the elderly when I was first elected to town council. I've had the opportunity to work with these great people, and I'm just looking to do it another 2 years.
Thanks, Mark. This is a great town. I moved here because it's a great town. I'm originally from New Hampshire. When my wife and I were working for a place to live, we looked all over Eastern Connecticut, Western Rhode Island. We found that Richmond had everything, had a good school system, had a rural character, had nice housing opportunities at the time. I got involved in the planning board because of some of the events that took place in my housing development. I was asked by Rich Nassani to put my name in the hat. I didn't even know what the planning board was at the time. And since then, I've really gotten to know this town. And I'm thankful that the town has given me the opportunity to serve and be a volunteer on the planning board and help this town move forward and be active. And I hope to continue doing that if the residents support me and elect me. I think that the people that we have here, I'll echo what they said, this would be a good group to work with, a really good group. We'd be able to have some really good, detailed, thoughtful discussions on some really tough topics. And I think everyone's here willing to listen and able to be flexible and do the work that we're elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight and listening to what we all have to say. It's important that you know what the candidates have to say and where they stand on things. I've lived in Richmond for 23 years, and during that time, I've been involved in trying to make this community a great place to live. Initially, I was involved in local nonprofits, community organizations, coaching Little League, coaching soccer, to serving on the boards of those organizations. I was president of Charahoe Youth Soccer for 4 years. I've also been on the board of the YMCA for more than 10 years and was their chief volunteer officer. More recently, I've been involved in town government. I've been on the Tax Assessment Board of Review since 2019. I was on the Charter Review Commission in 2021 and 2022. And before we went to a referendum, I was the moderator and presided over the very last financial town meeting we had in Richmond. As most of you probably know, I'm the lawyer in the group, but I'm also a small business owner. I own a law firm. I understand what it means to keep expenses down. I understand employer-employee relationships, and and understand the need for an efficient operation. And I'm running for town council to continue my commitment to making Richmond a great place to live and do business. And so I would respectfully ask for your vote for me and the other four folks up here. We'll make a great team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been a really wonderful conversation, and I'm glad that you were able to participate. Before we end this evening, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, we'd like to thank Ms. Pinch and Ms. Liesi for the opportunity to moderate these forums this evening. We'd also like to thank League members Jean Arthur and Michelle McCrae, who are the timers this evening, and Leaguers Kristen Chambers and Patricia Pouliot, who are this evening's greeters. We hope that the responses the candidates gave this evening on questions Richmond residents think are important will educate you on these important issues and where the candidates stand on each. I'm going to give you now a little bit of a plug for the League of Women Voters. On or before around October 10th, all of you will receive, every household will receive free of charge a voter guide. All of these candidates, all of them have been contacted and have participated. Some have decided not to, others have. So we urge you to look for that voter guide free of charge and read what the candidates have to say. It'll refresh your memory. It'll add to what these folks have spoken about. And I think it will give you a good picture of what is coming forward in the coming election. On your way out, you can take a look at our information on the League at the table here. And we just want to remind you that the window for early voting, the window for mail-in voting closes on October 19th. So if you want to vote, 15th.
October
Okay.
15th.
Okay, but I guess they will take them until the 19th. Whatever, okay, so the 15th. And early voting starts October 16th. And it'll go through to November 4th, and on the 5th is Election Day. So please keep that in mind, and we hope you all go to vote and that you have learned something tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the leadership.
Thank you.